Hello, everyone. We're here this week, still at Fort St. Clair, and behind me is a battlefield that happened right here next to the fort. Now, this week I took a look at three different sources, of which contribute to the whole of the Northwest Indian War story. Beginning with Jeffry Olster's article, To Extirpate the Indians, an Indigenous Consciousness of Genocide in the Ohio Valley and Lower Great Lakes, from the years spanning 1750 to the 1810s. Written for the William and Mary Quarterly in 2015, takes the angle of Native American perspective. A key motivation of Olster's argument stems from a conclusion made through his source titled Revitalization Movements in the journal American Anthropologist, where anthropologist and university professor F.C. Wallace writes, there to be little mention by scholars and historians of the evidence Indians in the 1750s feared physical elimination. Olster continues, writing himself, the recovery of such an indigenous consciousness of genocide advances one of early American history's central commitments. Now, Olster's source material well defines his central arguments and premise, using sources from historian David E. Stannard, who argues in his book American Holocaust, The Conquest of the New World, that the European and white American destruction of the native peoples of the Americas was the largest act of genocide in the history of the world. Olster's sources are numerous and full scope in terms of using primary accounts from personal journals and historical books. In content, Olster does a good job presenting a history from the early 1750s with a focus on following the different native nations as they experienced their moment with Western expansion. Olster's conclusion and findings show, in his words, a deeper appreciation for what actually Native Americans survived when they feared they might be utterly destroyed. Now, the second article, titled General Josiah Harmar's Campaign Reconsidered, How the Americans Lost the Battle of Kekionga, in the journal Indian Magazine of History, takes a different look at Josiah Harmar and his campaign into the Ohio Territory. The first general assigned by Congress to venture into Miami, Shawnee, and Ottawa land was Josiah Harmar. Now, as Michael Warner points out, Harmar's campaign remains both well known by scholars and in many ways not well understood. Warner's methodology is to tell the story from the many primary source journals, biographies, Harmar's personal correspondence, and books to describe all the intricacies of Harmar's march, detailing additional strategies that are missed in other writings, along with detailing the quality of militias and federal troops under Harmar's command. In content, Warner brings the Battle of Kekionga to life by telling the battle from sources discussing tactics and military plans to diary entries of soldiers in the fight. A valuable perspective I had yet to read on the events of Harmar's expedition north, which preceded both St. Clair and Wayne's. Concluding Warner's writings, though Harmar had many aspects of the campaign to justly blame for his defeat by the Miami at Kekionga, the sentiments of his men, country, and enemy were all solidified by his retreat and unwillingness to return to bury his dead. Now, the third article, titled American Indian Military Leadership, St. Clair's 1791 Defeat, found in the Journal of Military History, discusses St. Clair as he would be remembered had he won instead of lost, making a focus of his work to discuss the intricate and deep-rooted war practices and organization of the Indian Confederacy. Leroy Eid's methodology is to show St. Clair's defeat to be in no part incompetence by St. Clair himself, but the efforts of the Indian Confederacy in military tactics, unity, direction, and superior numbers, giving them the victory in the battle. Utilizing sources from microfilm and sources by author Fraser Wilson, who is a well-known contributor to Ohio's early history. Additionally, anthropologists and some of his own previous writing on related topics contributed references. The sources Eid uses indicate a drive to deliver on the accounts and memoirs of the men who knew St. Clair and who served with him. Also in the bibliography, I found the 1964 dissertation discussed in my previous video. Eid's content discusses the strength, style, and motivations of the Indian Confederacy, of which lent to their success against St. Clair. Now, in conclusion, Eid's depiction of St. Clair, from his many leadership positions to the Indian Confederacies war practices, indicated a need to understand St. Clair's defeat as both a sorrowful event and as a feat of military strategy. Eid's sources, methodology, content, and conclusion bring together a well-articulated and referenced article on a subject not so often discussed. Now, I thank you all for viewing, and I hope you all have a good night.